This is it, the dream realized. For fans of retro gaming and classic animation alike, Cuphead is the ultimate amalgamation. With a sense of style and flair, the likes of which we've never before seen in a game, Cuphead manages to combine gorgeous visuals, audio, and gameplay into one cohesive package. Today then, we're going to take a closer look at the pieces which make up this crazy little game, while also checking out the game on both the PC and Xbox One. So without further ado, let's jump in. Cuphead has been a long time coming. First starting development back in 2010, the development team started out with just 3 people before eventually expanding to nearly 20 by the time it shipped. The inspiration is clear. Cuphead is designed to channel the look of classic 1930s American cartoons, but digitally recreating this look wasn't enough. Instead, everything you see in Cuphead has been animated and inked on paper using traditional methods, with the resulting art digitized for use in the game. Colorization is handled digitally, of course, but everything else about the game is entirely handcrafted, and it shows. To top it all off, each of the game's backgrounds are hand-painted watercolors with various separate layers that piece together to create independently scrolling stages. Taken as a whole, the look is cohesive, richly animated, and exceedingly uncommon. The truth is, you don't see a lot of hand-drawn animation in games, but that doesn't mean there's no history here. Back in the early 90s, for instance, Disney's Aladdin for the Sega Genesis was created using animation penned by real Disney artists, lending the game a fluidity unlike anything else in the market. Following Aladdin, its developer Shiny Entertainment then created Earthworm Jim using a similar method coined Digicel. These games of course are limited by the low color and resolution output of Sega's 16-bit machine, but the results are remarkable all the same. Over the next decade or two, richly detailed examples of hand-drawn animation in games would pop up from time to time, including another one this year with Wonder Boy the Dragon's Trap. But it's an expensive, time-consuming process and thus rather uncommon overall. What makes Cuphead so unique lies in its artistic choices. 1930s animation has a very specific look, and not one we often see in games or film. When Studio MDHR set out to make this game, the objective was to design something unlike any other game on the market visually, and in that sense they have completely succeeded. And unlike many of those older games, Cuphead is designed for modern hardware, which means the technology is now there to display all the art at the highest fidelity. And when everything comes together, the results are pure magic. With such a unique appearance, what might surprise you the most is its core. Cuphead is a Unity game which obliterates the notion that an engine can predefine a certain style. But it didn't start out that way. Cuphead was originally created with the XNA framework, a now obsolete set of tools designed to smooth development for Xbox 360 and Windows. In early 2014 though, the team made the switch over to Unity instead to facilitate multi-platform development while easing the overall development process. This wasn't the only major change either. After Cuphead received such positive attention from fans and the media, the team decided to expand the concept to create a larger, more complex game. After all, Cuphead was originally created as a boss rush game with 8 selectable foes, but the final game features more than 17 boss fights and 6 side-scrolling action stages, and that's not even including the finale. In its finished form then, it's difficult not to think of games like Treasure's Alien Soldier, which featured short run-and-gun stages with a focus on boss battles. In fact, while we're thinking of Treasure, Cuphead kind of feels like a mix of Alien Soldier and Gunstar Heroes, and that's a very good thing. Now, when looking at the presentation, the sheer quantity of artwork is staggering, and all of it looks great. And normally at this point in a video, we would talk about things like resolution and the like, but that doesn't really apply here. Cuphead sort of transcends typical image quality discussions to deliver something entirely unique. Case in point, if you load the game up on the PC, Cuphead defaults to just 720p, scaled up to whatever your monitor resolution is. Jump up to a higher native resolution within the game, however, and, well, there's really no visible difference here. It's not entirely clear what resolution the individual pieces of artwork are mastered at, but it ultimately doesn't matter since the end results are so effective. It's just kind of interesting that no matter what screen you play Cuphead on, it's going to look great. This base artwork is then coupled with a post-process pipeline designed to create that authentic 30s animation vibe with dirty film stock and projection flaws. Grain, tiny hairs, and other debris flash across the screen during gameplay, while color separation simulates the look of a low-quality projector lens, perhaps one of the few times when chromatic aberration actually makes sense. For those that dislike the effect though, it can at least be dialed down in the options. Still, the goal here is to create something that looks very analog in nature. The softness of each frame coupled with these post effects is completely effective in achieving this. And as you might suspect then, there is no real visual difference between the game on Xbox One and on the PC. The core artwork from which the game is built is identical here, and both versions look absolutely fantastic in motion. Based on what we're seeing here then, you really shouldn't expect any kind of major graphical increase in the upcoming Xbox One X. Which is to say, whether you're using an original Xbox One X, the Xbox One S, the Xbox One X, or a PC, Cuphead is going to look the same. At least that's what I found when testing the game across a wide variety of different monitors and TVs. Oh, and while we're looking at the scene, check out this little detail. The sun featured in the rotating background actually influences the scene as a whole. When the sun is shining in the back there and you can see it, there's visible shadow on the foreground pillars. But as the sun goes around and moves out of view, it shines brightly on these same pillars, eliminating the shadow in the process. And it's not a fixed effect either. The PC and Xbox versions are running in sync here, but the sun is in a different place based on how quickly you triggered this side-scrolling section. Pretty cool, huh? Now, that's not to say that there aren't any differences between the two versions, however. The most noticeable improvement here when moving from Xbox to the PC is loading. On Xbox One, Cuphead features a lot of relatively lengthy loading screens. Moving between different segments of the map and playing different stages can become rather tedious as a result. On the PC, in comparison, the loading is not eliminated, but it's much faster overall. Of course, mercifully, both versions handle retries without issue, meaning you can restart any stage without waiting at all. Performance-wise then, Cuphead excels. While the animation itself is designed to simulate a lower frame rate, like 24 frames per second, the game plays out at a full 60 frames per second instead, resulting in smooth, fluid motion. We're looking at the Xbox One version here, and as you can see, it's a non-wavering level of fluidity. Well, at least for the most part. There are occasional tiny hiccups that appear from time to time, but by and large, it's fantastically smooth, just as it should be. The PC version is solid, but reading over on the Steam forums, it does seem that at least some users have run into issue with stuttering or locking to the wrong refresh rate, so do take caution there. On a powerful gaming PC equipped with a Titan XP and a 6-core i7 CPU, well, Cuphead doesn't really stand a chance. Hardware usage is ridiculously low and the game cruises along without issue. So while we didn't run into any of the stuttering or hitching in the Steam version, well, that's not to say we didn't encounter it at all. The UWP version of Cuphead that you can download from the Windows Store is a much less pleasant experience, at least on our hardware. The main issue here is performance. There are noticeable 180 millisecond pauses that occur during gameplay, interrupting the fluidity. This is reduced in windowed mode, but who wants to play in a window? No amount of tweaking was able to solve these issues, and it continued to persist throughout our time with the UWP version. Beyond that, once we enabled multiple monitors, we ran into plenty of freezes and other weirdness with this version that ultimately required us to reboot the PC to fix it. And that's not even getting into the Windows Store shenanigans. At least the UWP version is included if you buy it on Xbox One thanks to the Play Anywhere initiative, so it's at least worth trying on your own hardware. Alright then, so Cuphead is a great looking game, and it mostly runs well. But what makes this all the more impressive is how well it plays. In the past, games that focus on animation often give animation priority over controller response, leading to a somewhat clunky gameplay experience, but that's not the case here. Cuphead and Mugman react immediately to every button press, offering a level of precision that you typically only find in classic run-and-gun games. I must admit I was skeptical, but after getting the hang of it, it's clear that the team has nailed the feel. Just be sure to remap the dash button to the R trigger, which of course highlights another great feature in the game. You can remap your buttons as you please. Another interesting thing is the way the animation itself manages to play a role in the game design. The expressive nature of each enemy means that they're easy to read, even when you're focusing on another portion of the screen. Each attack is associated with an obvious tell, which informs the player of what's to come, and these expressive animations make certain that you won't miss it once you know what to look for. So while the visuals might feel like window dressing at first, the reality is that they actually benefit gameplay. Now, I suppose we can't finish this off without mentioning the difficulty level. Is Cuphead a hard game? Well, yes and no. For those of us into retro gaming, I feel like Cuphead is rather average in this regard, and a ton of fun as a result. Each stage is relatively short, you have infinite lives, and the game is based on simple pattern recognition. Once you get a feel for it, it's pretty easy to blast through most of the bosses. Now, on the other hand, if you do not typically play this sort of game, it might prove difficult. After all, this isn't a type of gameplay that we see very often these days. Of course, while difficulty is often subjective, I feel like if you want to see what a real retro challenge looks like, you could go back and try to play games like Contra the Hardcore, The Adventures of Batman and Robin, or Gradius 3 Arcade, just to name 3. These are all much more difficult games. Ultimately though, whichever way you come down on the issue, know that Cuphead offers both rock-solid gameplay and incredible visuals. It's a remarkable and unexpected pairing, but it works. I also think it's fair to say that we won't be seeing anything quite like this for a long time. The sheer amount of time and effort poured into crafting this world and its characters simply cannot be overstated. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Cuphead then as much as I've enjoyed putting the video together. It's a rare treat of a game and one well worth checking out. And for those that prefer physical media, know that the developers themselves have confirmed that there will eventually be a physical release of the game, which is just excellent news. But that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us over on Twitter. And until next time, this is John signing off.
Don't mess with King Kong. Don't mess with me. Don't mess with King Kong.